AI is supposed to be this huge game changer, right? But what if I told you that for most companies, it's just not working? So let's really get into it. We are going to break down exactly why so many AI projects are falling flat and give you the playbook the winners are using to get actual, tangible results.
95%. You really need to let that number sink in. A recent study found that a staggering 95% of business AI projects never deliver a real return on investment. Think about that. Companies are pouring billions into this, hoping for some kind of magic bullet, but what they're mostly getting is, well, all sizzle and no steak. The stakes here are just incredibly high.
So that brings us to the big question: why? I mean, if the technology is so powerful, why is the failure rate so ridiculously massive? Figuring this out is the absolute key to making sure you don't end up in that 95% pile. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at what I'm calling the great AI letdown and get into the real reasons projects fail. Then we'll see what the successful 5% are doing differently. After that, I'm going to give you their step-by-step playbook, and we'll wrap it all up with a one-week action plan you can literally start tomorrow.
All right, let's start with the diagnosis. It's so easy to get swept up in all the hype, but really understanding the common pitfalls, that's the first step to actually avoiding them.
And this right here, this is the absolute core of the problem. It kind of flips the whole script. See, most people think, we're just waiting for the tech to get a little better. But the reality, the tech is already plenty powerful. The real roadblocks are human. Things like changing workflows, getting people to actually use the new tools, and, building trust in what the AI is putting out.
This quote just nails one of the biggest issues: the learning gap. So many AI tools are just one and done. They do a task, and then they completely forget everything. They don't learn from feedback. I mean, think about it. You would never hire a human assistant who has amnesia every single morning, right? So why would you rely on a tool that does the exact same thing? It makes them fundamentally unreliable as a teammate.
So if it's not the tech, what is it? Well, it really boils down to a few key things. First up, you've got human factors. If a tool's clunky or people just don't want to change, it's pretty much dead on arrival. Then there's what we call shiny object syndrome. That's when a project doesn't have a clear business problem it's trying to solve. It's more of a science fair project than a real strategy. And of course, data issues. Bad data in, bad results out. Simple as that. And finally, you've got culture clash. When teams are anxious about their jobs, they don't embrace new tools, they quietly find ways to work around them.
This is just the perfect analogy for the data problem. You can have the most powerful AI model in the world, a beautiful Ferrari. But if you don't have that foundation of clean, accessible data to power it, well, you've just got a very expensive engine with an empty gas tank. And it is going absolutely nowhere.
Okay, enough about the problems. Let's pivot to the solution, because that's what we're here for. The top 5% of these teams don't just have better technology, they have a fundamentally different way of thinking about this stuff. And this is the core of their strategy. It all starts with a business metric, not some cool new model. It means they redesign the entire workflow around the AI. They don't just bolt it on top of a broken process. They're also hunting for the unsexy money, the high-value wins in back-office stuff that nobody ever talks about. And they measure real outcomes, not just good vibes. We're talking hours saved, errors cut, dollars earned. And this is critical. They get their own people, even a skeptic, to help design the solution from day one.
Let's make this super real. Here's a classic flop. A company launches a generic chatbot to handle all their customer service. Sound familiar? But the bot has no memory, it can't access order data, and it ends up just escalating everything to a human anyway. The result? The human agents actually have more work because now they have to clean up the bot's mess. It failed because it ignored every single rule of the 5% mindset. Now look at the contrast. Here's a win. This project targeted one specific, kind of boring pain point: processing invoices. It had a super narrow scope, it had access to the right data, and it had a feedback loop so it could actually learn from human corrections. And the result? A 68% reduction in how long it took to process an invoice, and over $1 million saved per year. That's the power of focusing on a real problem.
So you've seen the mindset. Now let's get into the mechanics. This is the actionable, step-by-step playbook you can use to replicate that kind of success.
This is a repeatable system. Okay, step 1. Pick one boring, expensive process and define its main metric. Step 2. Map out the workflow as it exists today. Step 3, and this is so important, choose tools that actually remember and learn. Step 4. Get your team involved in the design.
Step 5, use a 30, 60, 90-day plan to build momentum and show some quick wins. And finally, Step 6, hold everyone, including your vendors, accountable for real business outcomes.
A playbook is great, but let's be honest, starting is often the hardest part. So, we're going to break this down into an aggressive one-week action plan to get you off the ground, like right now.
This is how you build momentum fast. Day 1, just pick one process. That's it, and write down its goal. Days 2 and 3, map it all out. Day 4, draft your plan and start looking at tools. And by day 5, you're recruiting your team and getting buy-in from your boss. In just 1 week, you can go from a vague idea to a concrete plan of attack.
And that's really the secret, isn't it? Real transformation doesn't start with some massive multi-million-dollar moonshot project. It starts small. It starts with a one-page plan focused on solving one tedious, boring business problem. That is where all the value is hiding.
So, if you take away nothing else from this, remember this cheat sheet. Start with a real problem, use tools that get smarter over time, move fast, don't wait for perfection, measure what actually matters to the business, and above all else, design for the humans who will have to use this thing every single day. And that brings us to the final question. This one's for you to answer. After everything we've talked about, think about your own work, your own company. What is that one tedious, high-volume, expensive process that is just sitting there waiting to be transformed? That's your starting line. That's your ticket to joining the 5%.